Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and we are here to talk about the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient text written about 600 BCE, presumably by a guy Lao Tzu. Now, the whole history of the Tao, if you've been listening to this, you know that I'm not really concerned about getting into that. I really just want to chat about what the Tao is and what is what it entails. And the text is so important. The text is important to understand what it is expressing. Like if we look at the history of the Tao Te Ching, like things weren't being written. I mean, this was written 600 BCE. It's considered an ancient text, and there's not many of them. It's not like we had people writing about people that were writing, right? So we didn't write stories about people that wrote the Tao like we do now, right? We write stories about people who are doing things, and then we write op-eds about like those writings, and like we just write. It's just common. Back when this was written, writing wasn't common. And so I'm not really interested in looking at like, how did this get written? Here it is. This is what we have to, this is what we have to work with. And it resonates with me. That's one of the big things, that it resonates with me. It's 81 verses. It's all very, I suppose it's paradoxical at times, but that is nature. As I look at my life and I read the Tao Te Ching, I see that it makes sense. It makes sense in the way that I want to live my life. I don't want to live my life as a victim. And in the Tao is a strong message that you're not a victim, right? And the more I live in alignment with Tao, the better my life becomes. The easier life is, the more rich my life becomes, both in every aspect. I don't expect that living a life in Tao is going to make me a billionaire. But I don't see any value in being a billionaire anyway. So there's that. I am able to live in accordance with Tao to the degree that I can, because I'm open to all things, and I'm open to things being as they are and respecting them as they are. So what we do on this show is we take the Tao, which consists of 81 chapters, and I want to invite you up to pick a number between 1 and 81, and then we'll read that chapter of the Tao together. Before you pick a number, I always like to chat with you a little bit about what's going on. What's on your mind these days? What are you facing? What are you working with? What are you working on? What's going on with you? Are there struggles? Are there good things? Are there people that are hurting in your life? Because when we look at that big picture, and then we pick a number, we kind of set a baseline. And in setting that baseline, it's sort of like picking an oracle card. If you know what you're picking it for, then you pick that card and you say, oh, I got the Raven card. And you're like, okay, well, let's look at the Raven in relation to the baseline that you set before you pick that number. So I don't always know like how to pick a number for me, what's best. I mean, maybe I will over the weekend, maybe I can make little cards that have 1 to 81 on it, and you can either pick a number or I can pick one from the bowl for you. I'm thinking about that just because, I do think that like giving ourselves up, giving up the ability to pick, and it's hard for me to pick because I want to be able to go through all of them. I want to be able to go through and read many different ones. But often when I pick, there are a couple that I just don't pick. Numbers are interesting. They come up. And so sometimes what I do is I just scroll through and I look at the titles that I have, because I have it set to be able to do that. And I'm looking at 74 today. Don't cut yourself. The interesting thing is I saw that and I didn't even really put it together, but 2 days ago I cut myself really bad on the palm of my hand. So don't cut yourself is the title of this one. This is the one that attracted me, right? So I'm attracted to the one entitled Don't Cut Yourself 2 days after I cut myself. And I didn't recognize that until I just started talking to you about it. So here we are, 74. Don't cut yourself. People are not naturally afraid to die. It is what they're born to do. Fear of death is important if you want to rule over people. However, you must artificially instill this fear into their hearts. To accomplish this, you kill as an example to control the masses. Since the beginning of time, there has been one executioner. Trying to take its place will lead to nothing good. As a novice with a master carpenter's tool, you're going to cut yourself. I cut myself on a lawnmower. I was trying to take the top end off of a lawnmower, and I just, when the nut finally got loose, my hand went over a threaded rod and cut my hand open. But that's neither here nor there. This piece, when I was coming up with this translation, people are not naturally afraid to die, is what we are born to do. That, when I wrote that, I wanted people to take note of the fact that it's not natural to be afraid to die. And the only thing that every living thing does is die. It's the only thing that we're all going to do. We're not all going to get jobs. We're not all going to breathe air. Like plants are alive, right? They don't breathe oxygen. We're not all going to move around in the same way, And I know this says people are not naturally afraid to die. It is what they are born to do. But everything, nothing is afraid to die. We're moving inexhaustibly towards death. It is what we are born to do. This is the one thing. Yes, we have other purposes. We have other reasons for being here on the planet, and there are other reasons we were given this gift of life. However, we are not naturally afraid to die. And I wanted, when I wrote that line, I wanted it to sort of pique people's interest. To say, oh, that's interesting. We're all going to die. Being alive requires facing death. So it's not something that you're going to be afraid of. Now, I know there is an idea that, no, if there was something that was dangerous, I'd run away from it. And I would argue that that could be preservation of life rather than fear of death. There's a difference. Like if you want to preserve your life, you run away from danger. It doesn't mean that you're afraid to die. It just means that you want to continue living. So, maybe that's semantics. I don't know. Maybe it's just like, it's the same thing. But no. I would disagree. I would say that we're not naturally afraid to die. It is what we're born to do. I think about early man, when they were eating things and dying. Every time you have an experience, you put it into the universe and you put it into the periphery of the human experience. And so other humans grow from that. Other human beings grow from your experience. You're going to have experiences that are going to contribute to the psyche, to the subconscious of humankind, everything that you do. And so the healing that you do is going to affect others. The healing you do within your specific, personal, subjective experience, that is going to contribute to the growth of mankind as a whole. Right? So people are not naturally afraid to die. It is what we are born to do. There was a time when humans didn't know anything, didn't know what was safe to eat, didn't know what was not safe to eat, didn't know anything. And now this is consciousness on the planet in general, but for humans specifically, we didn't know what we could do. And so in order to get to a place where we could know what we could do, many humans, early humanoids, had to eat things and die. And if one person eats, let's say, hemlock and dies, that's not enough, right? That experience goes into the human consciousness. And then somebody else eats it. That's another little drop in the bucket. Then a drop in the bucket. And then someone eats it and someone witnesses it. And then that's a drop in the bucket. These are all subjective experiences. They are all continued subjective experiences, one after another, each one contributing to the greater consciousness of mankind. People are not naturally afraid to die. They eat it. They are not afraid. They're doing their purpose. They are going to eat this. They are going to learn that this is not good to eat. This is something that will kill you. And then some people start using it as poison, and people use it, and people avoid it. And then there's increasing numbers of information going into the psyche. Now, this happens in all sorts of ways. Like there are authors, there are studies that talk about authors who write the same friggin' book, or scientists who study the same thing, don't know anything about each other, and they're all happening at the same time. Why? We've reached a tipping point. There's a tipping point where the consciousness of mankind is collecting. And now that the internet's out there, that is sort of a makeshift image of consciousness. However, our consciousness, of course, is a lot deeper than that, because everything everybody thinks, much less acts upon and writes, is in that consciousness. Now, if we don't have a strong filter in our brain, if our brain isn't working at peak performance, that could cause a lot of mental illness, a lot of trauma, a lot of pain. And this is when we start talking about intervention. When we start talking about, people are intervening. People are getting in the way of nature doing its thing. Fear of death is important if you want to rule over people. Now, we're not just talking about fear of death. This is the big one. Death is the big one. But we could be talking about education. People are not naturally afraid to learn. That's what we're born to do. Dying is the big one. That's the one, but we could use dying as the ultimate thing, but we could slide different things in here, right? People are not naturally afraid to learn, and so being open to learn is something that you're always doing, that you always, you're always open to learn, because you're just like, that's what we're here to do. We're here to take things in, but we're not here to hold on to those lessons. We don't, but fear of death, as we move to the next part, fear of death is important. If you like, having people hold on to specific lessons is important if you want to corral your people. Because if everybody thinks the same way, then you can manipulate your surroundings. So we get everybody to go through a certain schooling system, a certain way of learning, and then we categorize everybody. Rather than everybody being the same, rather than everybody being one, rather than everybody being able to like contribute their own particular brand of being, we try and get everybody to assimilate to some sort of understanding so that we can all be entrepreneurs, right? So that we can all be, moving towards the same goal. That way we can leave people behind. That way we can measure everybody. We can measure everybody. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about like interfering and getting in the way of people being who they are. Because fear of death is important if you want to rule over people. And this is a broad category. People aren't naturally afraid to be who they are. But if you want to rule over people, you better make sure that they know who you want them to be. And hone them into what you want so that they don't get unruly. And that's what, a lot of people get frustrated with me because I don't have preference. Not a lot. A couple people in my life get frustrated with me because I don't have preference. They're like, I want you to have preference. I want you to like things. And I'm just like, it's work for me to do that. Like I have to actually like work at trying to have a preference. I don't care. Caring is like what they want me to do so that they can buy me products, so that I can want things, so I can engage with things. And it's like, I don't want to engage with things. I'm good. Like I engage with nature, I engage with my life. And when my life presents me with things, I do that. But, this fear of death is important if you want to rule over people. If you want to control people, you make sure that they have fear of not having enough. And if they don't have enough, they're going to die. Fear of not being accepted. And if they're not accepted, they're going to be shut out of the group and they're going to die, right? Like this is all what we do. And how did we do that? How did we get here? It's been artificially instilled within us. And what it says next is to accomplish this, you kill as an example to control the masses. You kill as an example to control the masses. You kill someone's spirit. You put them down. You let them know if they're not like everybody else, they're going to be alone. You make sure that you kill in the presence of others so that those others can see that without being accepted, if you're not accepted, then you're going to be left alone and you're going to die. So this is a broad message, right? People are not naturally afraid to die. It is what we are born to do. Now, fear of death is important if you want to rule over people. So people not being afraid to die naturally is a hurdle that you have to overcome. If you want to control people, you're going to have to make sure that they know that death is a fearful thing. So it says, however, you must artificially instill this fear into their hearts. Now, how do you do that? To accomplish this, you kill as an example to control the masses. Now, you kill someone's spirit, you kill someone's ability. And this happens well before we're even 3 years old sometimes. Oh, you're doing something and that's weird. Don't do that. Oh, don't do that. Right? Little boys touch their penis when they're getting there, and parents will smack their hand away. Don't do that. That's dirty. And it's like, what? They're fucking 1 year old, not even. Like, there's nothing dirty about what this kid is doing, right? And there's nothing dirty about that. But if you do that, like that's bad. And if you do that, we're going to, like put you down. And it's like, well, if we had a healthy relationship with our bodies, everything would be in line. If we weren't told, if we weren't under the influence of everything around us, if we weren't under the influence of our parents all the time and all the things that they thought because they were approaching us, don't dance like that. That's not nice. Or don't dance like that. Or don't, sit down. Don't draw on the wall. Don't do all of these things. Don't express yourself in that way. Express yourself in the way your father does, right? Like by drinking beer, right? Or express yourself in these ways that we want you to express yourself. Because if you express yourself in your way, we're not going to love you. We're not going to, and then you're going to have a fear of death. And that's how you kill the spirit. Hey, Sarah, how are you? Sarah Bird? Sometimes people don't know that they join. And so I always like to give people a little time to figure it out. Maybe your phone is on mute or what have you. But I'm going to go ahead and continue reading this. This is about this don't cut yourself is about not taking the place of God or Tao or the nature of who someone is. Not allowing things to work themselves out as they normally will, as they naturally will. The next line after, to accomplish this, you kill as an example to control the masses. And you can do that in many ways. Since the beginning of time, there has been one executioner. Since the beginning of time, there has been one. It says executioner because we're talking about killing. However, what it's talking about is since the beginning of time, there has been one consciousness that is driving everything, right? There's been one consciousness that will guide you to where you're going. There's one consciousness that will take you. Sarah, thanks for coming up. If you ever wanted to chat, I'd be happy to talk. But I'm glad that you came up, and I hope we get a chance to talk sometime. So since the beginning of time, there has been one consciousness that is driving our being. Trying to take its place will lead to nothing good. And this is how our society is really set up, is taking the place of consciousness. In order to be prepared for the future, you have to read, write, understand all of these things that we teach you in school, and then you'll be okay in the future. And so parents believe that there is a connection to, we have to send our child to school, because if we send our child to school, they will be able to successfully have a future. The problem is that we don't know what the future has, and we're teaching in school we're teaching children how to live in the life today, as if the future is going to be similar to the way it is today. And it may or may not be. But when we live in this way where it's we're trying to take the place of that one consciousness, then we're not actually engaging in being. We're not actually engaging in a conversation with nature. I remember many years ago, I was still living at home, so it had to have been, 30 years ago. I remember there was talk about a big snowstorm. And as that snowstorm, as people were talking about the snowstorm, as the snowstorm was building, and we're 2 days or so before the snowstorm, as the snowstorm was kind of in the news, the people at Lincoln Park Zoo and Brookfield Zoo here in Chicago were on the news talking about how they were intrigued as to why the animals were hoarding food all of a sudden Now, they were hoarding food 3 days, 4 days before the snowstorm came. This was before the news was even talking about it. And so it was so impressive to me that animals knew what was going on and we didn't. And we have all of this and we think we're smart and stuff. And the thing is this is what this is talking about. If we were to crush the souls of those animals so that they only trusted us and not themselves, they wouldn't, and I'm sure their souls are crushed enough being in zoos, but they still are in touch with Tao. They're still in touch with the natural order of things. And when a message goes out, they hear it. And they're like, oh, we better save food because there's going to be a time. Now, do they know a snowstorm is coming? Are they conscious of that? Maybe not. I don't know. But are they conscious of what's happening? They just know they need to eat less and hoard more for this time. And that's the thing. We're all in touch with that. We do have connection to that which is conscious, right, in the universe. So since the beginning of time, there's been one executioner. There's been one teacher. There's been one, experience. There's been one thing. And you're in touch with that one thing. You're having a subjective experience through which you are in touch with that one thing. Just like the lions and the ostrich, they're saving food, and they don't necessarily know why. They're having a subjective experience that's telling them, I'm not going to eat all of this today. I'm going to save it for later because it needs to last me when I'm. And again, I'm not saying that they knew that a snowstorm was coming and they were going to need, I'm not saying that they knew that. I'm just saying that something was telling them that this is what's going on. You know, it's funny when we talk about bats and echolocation and all that kind of stuff. It's you do realize that the bats don't know anything about that. They just do it. It's not like we're going, this is so complex. No, this is just what the bat does. This is how the bat gets along and gets around. You know, if you were to, and I do this when I go on hikes, I close my eyes and I walk. And I see how far I can get trusting myself. See how far I can get. Because if I trust myself, then I'm trusting that one executioner, that one teacher, that one being that we are all connected to. I'm trusting Tao. Trying to take its place will lead to nothing good. So since the beginning of time, there's been one executioner. Trying to take its place will lead to nothing good. As a novice with a master carpenter's tools, you're going to cuss yourself. I don't care how old we are, we're novices at living in conjunction and in connection to everything. We are here as human beings, and what we do is look out at the world. I was talking to a group of people yesterday, maybe I even mentioned it on here too, this idea that we live 2/3 of our lives being shown that what we're seeing is real. And if we think that that is the ultimate reality, then we're going to go out in the world and go, well, I can control things. I can control people. I can get people to do what I want, and I can use force, and I can do all of these things. However, if Tao and God and all of these things exist, then there is no controlling things, because there is something greater than you. You are just a single part. And yes, Tao is within you, God is within you, and you have access to that, but so does everybody else. So yielding and knowing that trusting that people don't need to be afraid to die. People need to be excited to live. And if you want to control people, you better make sure that they have a fear of death, because then they won't get out of hand. But if you want people in the earth to balance, you make sure that they're looking forward to life. And that's, when I work with people, when I talk to people, I want to make sure you love being alive. Now, I want this show to be a show that people listen to because they love being alive. I don't want people to come here and be like, I'm afraid to die. How can I avoid it? No, that you're wasting your time and you're wasting your energy. Don't be afraid to die. This is why life is a gift, right? That's why life is a gift received from Tao, and everything is sustained in support of that gift. That's another verse. I don't know which number that is offhand, but I can look it up if anybody wants. But life, I'll look it up. Someone hearted it, so I'm going to go ahead. Life is a gift. Yes, life is a gift. The cycle is number 51. I'll go ahead and read this now. Number 51, life is a gift received from Tao. It sustains all things as part of that gift. Everything emerges perfect, unconscious, and free, harmonizing with all things, completely maturing in its own time. All things exist and are nurtured through Tao. It fosters and provides for them completely. Tao does not possess or interfere, each expressing and maturing in their own nature. When their experience is complete, Tao receives them again. So that's interesting, right? Because this 51 and was it 74 that I read before? Don't cut yourself. Yeah, 51 and 74. So I'm going to go between these two, and then we'll be able to chat a little bit about how these two connect. I'm going to try and make it so I don't have to scroll. I can just click really quick. There it is. There still might be too many in between. No, I actually think I can do it. No, very, very slight. Okay, so Don't Cut Yourself talks about this idea that there's one executioner. Talks about this idea that there is no need to be afraid of death. And if you wanted to control people, you have to take the place of nature. Now, controlling people in any way, right? Telling people that they're not right about how they're expressing themselves, telling people that they should or shouldn't be doing things, telling people that they even in a relationship, telling someone that that they need to show you love in a very specific way. Like, you're trying to control them. If you don't like the way that they show you love, maybe they're not the person to show you love in that way. Maybe you need to find somebody else to show you love in that way. And I'm not trying to dismantle your concepts of relationship. I mean, relationships used to be a very fluid thing, but in our society, right, controlling people, fear of death, does come into play with relationships as well, right? Like, oh, if my partner leaves me, I'm going to die. And that's I'm afraid of that, right? Like, so there is this kind of, that is in line with that. But when we look at the cycle, when we look at number 51, life is a gift received from Tao. It sustains all things as part of that gift. Everything that's in your life, every body, every blade of grass, every bumblebee that has pollinated a tomato that you're eating, like everything in the universe, the moon, the stars, is sustained as support of the gift of your life. Now, you also have to recognize that you're being sustained as the gift of my life and other people's lives, right? So your life is like the gift of your life is sustaining all things in the universe. And you're being sustained as an insignificant part of someone else's life. That's the paradox of living. You are absolutely everything and nothing all at the same time. One, it could be freeing for some, for that to exist. So when we read this line, life is a gift received from Tao. Oh, it's so nice. I received a gift. It sustains all things as part of that gift. Oh my God, thank you so much. That's so wonderful. You're sustaining everybody. But then that should then show you that your life is a gift. The life of a blade of grass is a gift. And you're being sustained in support of the life of that blade of grass. You're no more important than a blade of grass. Everything emerges perfect, unconscious, and free, harmonizing with all things. Now, if you are stuck in a relationship with a toxic relationship with a narcissist or something like that, well, this is harmonizing. You're harmonizing. There is something within you that needs this experience. There's something within them that needs that experience, and you're having a subjective experience and they're having a subjective experience, and neither of them are the same, right? They're completely different experiences. Now you have to do what you need to do in your experience to be able to grow. Now that doesn't mean that you have to act, in a way that's going to put you in danger or anything like that. You just act as you need to act in this moment. You will grow to a place where you will be able to be you. And that's what happens. We're born, we're under the influence of our parents, we live under the influence of all these things. Why are we under the influence? Because everybody around us wants to control us. Our parents, and those of you that are parents, know that it's easier to watch your child when you can predict what they're going to do. However, if they're off doing their own thing, you can't predict what they're going to do, and now you have to expend more energy watching your child. Well, that's part and parcel for the course. Yes. But we have tried to control, right? This is where we're cutting ourselves, as it was expressed in the other verse, right? We want the child, and this is harsh language, but we want the child to be afraid to die. We want the child to be afraid that they won't eat. We want the child to be afraid that they're going to be left, that they won't be loved, that, I'm going to get mad at this child. And we're not consciously doing this. We're not consciously going out of our way to instill fear in our child, but that's how we were raised. And we don't know anything better. So we do those things. And then we control this child. And if our child does something for us, or because we punished it once and we rewarded it another time, and then it does what we rewarded it for, then all of a sudden they're living under the influence of us. Now, we may benefit from that, but they may not. I would venture to say they don't benefit from living under the influence of us. And that's looking at number 74. People are not naturally afraid to die. It's what we're born to do. Children are fine being who they are until they get in trouble, until there's a threat that their pack will leave them alone and they can't care for themselves. They can't feed themselves. Fear of death is important if you want to rule over people, and so you do that. However, you must artificially instill this fear into their hearts. And then we start doing that as children, and then that moves into school, and then people go to school with the fear of being left behind and having no future and dying, and then we get into politics and we fear like each side fears the other side, and like the death that's going to come with that, the death of whatever, the current political situation that we find ourselves in, and you've instilled this in the hearts of millions of people, and now everybody is working to avoid death. And what do we talk about? Oh, you're going to die if I don't come, if I'm not here to save you. You're going to die, or democracy's going to die if you don't vote for me, and ... And it's all this fear of death stuff. You must artificially instill this fear in their hearts because it's not naturally there. To accomplish this, you kill as an example to control the masses. And we've seen this happen. And then we go to 51. Life is a gift, right? And so instead of all of this fear mongering so that we can control other people, we start looking at life as a gift received from Tao. It sustains all things as part of that gift. Even the experiences that you're having that are telling you to be afraid to die, if you look inside yourself and find that there's no natural fear there, that it's all intellectual fear, then you can face your subjective learning, your subjective experience. You can face this on your own. This is about having trust in yourself and your experience and recognizing that you're both the most important thing on the planet and utterly insignificant. You're the most important thing for you, your experience, and utterly insignificant to others. Now, they can love you, but what they're doing by loving you is having an experience of love. And it could be you, it could be someone else, it could be like it's like it just happens to be you because you need something from them as well. You need a lesson from them, and so they're going to love you, and maybe there's pain involved, and maybe it's only good, I don't know, but it's always lessons about who we are. Everything emerges perfect, unconscious, free, harmonizing with all things, completely maturing in its own time. And as you mature in your own time, if you're not ready to stop utilizing influence to get other people to do what you want to do, then you're not ready. No big deal. This is why I tell people who, especially those who, struggle with, addiction or food or whatever. It's like, hey, you're going to do this until you don't. You've done it before. You're going to do it again. Don't beat yourself up about it. Give yourself some grace. You're going to do it until you don't. Simply recognize you don't like that you're doing it if that's the case. If you don't like that you're doing it, recognize, I don't like that I'm doing this. That's okay. No big deal. You don't like that you're doing it. You don't have to stop doing it, but recognize, bring awareness to the fact that you don't like that you're not doing it. This is the way you're going to harmonize with all things. You're not going to judge yourself to get there because your willpower only is going to last so long. And so you sit here and you be still. And you harmonize with that. You say, I don't like that I'm doing this. However, I'm going to do it until I don't. Is today the day I don't? Yes. No. Doesn't matter. Do what you do. All things exist and are nourished through Tao. So this desire for you to do that which you don't like that you do, it's nourished through Tao so that you can learn and you can harmonize at a higher level. Yesterday I was talking to Mary and she was talking about an experience that she had where someone triggered her. And in that trigger was a gift for her to see herself from a new light. And that's the thing. That's the whole, hey, let's just embrace this moment with whatever it is. Let's embrace this experience that we're having, the singular subjective experience that I'm having right now, simply because it's what's happening. All things exist and are nurtured through Tao. It fosters and provides for them completely. You are being fostered and provided for completely. And if you think you can do a better job, as we were talking in the other one, you're going to cut yourself. Tao does not possess or interfere. It does not trying to take over. It's not trying to get you to do anything. It's not trying to get you to be anything. It just wants you to be who you are. Every one of us, everything is going to express and mature in our own nature. So that which we want to be will eventually be what we are, or we will stop wanting to be it. And we will end up being what we are rather than what we want. But again, the want and the desire and the trying to manipulate the world around us to give us what we want, that's a completely different experience. That's not yielding and receiving the gift. That's sending the gift back and saying, I wanted something else. I wanted a super soaker. This is where it all sort of starts to get intertwined. And this is where the paradox of everything comes in. Because you would think you would want to be who you are. But when you learn as a child very often that what you are isn't accepted, and when we have a fear of being unloved, when we have a fear of being alone, when we have a fear of dying, connected to being what we are, we take up the influence of others. And when we take up the influence of others, we are in this space where we're not in harmony. And then we have to get back to harmony. We have to get back to this place of like, hey, I need to now recognize that I'm doing something I don't like that I'm doing. And I'm doing something that isn't filling me in any way in my life. And I need to have a conversation about that. It may take years, but start now. Start bringing awareness into your life now so that you don't have to wait years to start. It doesn't matter if you do. You're eventually, right? You're going to do it until you don't. And right now, actually, consciousness is changing. 10 years ago, it was a lot harder to be aware than it is today. The veil is just thinning. It's easier to see through the veil. And that's why everything is falling apart. All of the facades, all of the supports and the foundations of all of the, bullshit that we've engaged in is falling apart. And we're just coming to this place of everything is a lie. The only thing that's not a lie is your stillness, is that which is within you. That singular subjective experience. Everything else is a lie. It's only part of something bigger. You are only part of something bigger. And your stillness will expose that to you, will expose that biggerness to you, that oneness, that objective oneness. And you will understand. You will not. I hesitate in saying this because it's a hard thing, but you will probably not be able to express it verbally. If you can express it verbally, wonderful, but it's probably not it. The reason I say that is because it's too much. We look at the number 1 chapter of the Tao, right? The first chapter of the Tao. Words cannot express this. I sit here for an hour and I talk every day, and I have yet to come close to expressing what Tao is. But as we go through this, and you just take it all in, you realize it's all nothing, and you are all of it. Oh, we did have someone, and they went away. I had somebody in the chat, but they did not come through. but that's okay. McFarlane wanted to come up. But if you want to come up, I'm always open to chatting with people about this. But thank you for the clap, and I appreciate you being here. So life is a gift received from Tao. As you guys go into your weekend, I want you to keep that with you. If that's it's just a simple concept, life is a gift. And it's your gift, right? This life is your gift. But we have to recognize that the life of our children, the life of our friends, the life of the cashier, the life of the homeless man, those are gifts as well. Your life, the gift of your life, is sustaining those lives for you. And the gift of their lives is sustaining your life for them. Your whole life, your bank account, your whole experience, everything that you are is being sustained in support of their life. Hey, Blossom, how are you?
I'm good. I love you so much.
I love you. Well, I'm just going to receive that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so many beautiful words you speak. It's just lovely to listen to you.
Oh, thank you.
You touch me in so many ways when you talk about this Tao thing. I've no idea where it's coming from, but I'd really love to know more.
Oh, well, I'm grateful for that.
And
yeah,
so
the Tao, it's been such a big part of my life, and the complexity and the simplicity, and it's the paradox of being, and it puts it into so many
realms.
Yeah. And it's like you, it fills me.
Yeah. It's filling me up too. I'm so grateful for it. You sent me number 4, which was lovely to read again.
Yeah, I try to make sure that I send out the text so that you can kind of sit with it a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely. Did you want to pick a number this morning?
Yeah, maybe 22.
22. It's a longer one. Maybe the longest one. And it's entitled Looking Away from What You Want.
Okay.
To be complete, know that you're partial. To become straight, know that you're crooked. To become full, know that you're empty. To be new, know that you're worn out. He who wants it all must know what all includes. Thus, the master stays centered in Tao and becomes an example for the world. Because she knows her light is forfeit, people can see it. Because she has no point to prove, people can trust her words. Because she has no identity, she becomes a mirror for others. Because she has nothing to attain, nothing can be kept from her. Thus, when it is said to be complete, know that you're partial, it is wise to heed and surrender to it. Only by living in collaboration with Tao can one find completion. What are your thoughts?
I was just thinking that the depth of that, what you just wrote, who wrote, let me say it a bit louder. It needs contemplation when you're listening to this. That's why there's a lot of silence sometimes when you've finished speaking. Because there's a depth in it that it's so deep that it takes one into the divine spirit. That's how I feel about it. It elevates my consciousness to a different perception.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's hard to hear for the first time.
That's
And
it.
because when I read this, and I know that it's hard to hear, and that's why I ask people, like, what words or lines stood out to you? Because that's the thing that's most important to me. It's like, what is the word? What is the line? What is the thing that rang out louder than everything else? And when I ask that, people always say, oh yeah, well, this one word, but because you can't grasp the whole thing, especially after hearing it on one read, especially
Can
this
you
one.
read it again?
I'm going to, yeah, I will. But because that then gives us a starting point, when we start with that one word, and then I also know what you're aligned with in that verse. So let me go ahead and read this again. To become complete, know that you're partial. To become straight, know that you're crooked. To become full, know that you're empty. To be new, know that you're worn out. He who wants it all must know what all includes. Thus, the master stays centered in Tao and becomes an example for the world. Because she knows her light is forfeit, people can see it. Because she has no point to prove, people can trust her words. Because she has no identity, she can become a mirror for others. Because she has nothing to attain, nothing can be kept from her. Thus, when it is said, to become complete, know that you're partial, it is wise to heed and surrender to it. Only by living in collaboration with Tao can one find completion.
So I don't like the last bit where it says only by blah blah from Tao can you blah blah. I don't like that bit, but the rest of it's pretty profound.
Yeah. Only is a tough thing to, kind of sit, because
And this is the English language, you see. It's got these
right.
traps in it. You've got to try and wake up to the trap. Yeah.
Right. And so there's an interesting thing that's happening in this one that stands out to me, especially today. I mean, I don't know that I've thought about it this way before, but the first part is very human, right? Is very normal. To become complete, you must know that you're partial. So when you want
this and that side, you're this and you're that.
Right, you're this or that. You're this, right. You and if you want it all, you must know what all includes. And this is the desirous nature of people, right? We want things. We want things to be a certain way. We want our lives to have things. We want to be certain things. And so we must know what all that includes. And so we live our lives, if we're in this stage, we live our lives understanding the balance between the two, understanding that hate and love are the two sides of the same coin, and we have to be able to, we want to love. Well, we better love hate just as much as we love everything else, rather than hating hate because we want to love.
That's right.
Right.
And
then it talks about the master. And the master doesn't have desire. The master doesn't want to be complete, doesn't want to be straight, doesn't want to be full, doesn't want to be new, doesn't want anything. The master stays centered in Tao. Now, Tao is just a word, once again, that is just pointing at consciousness, is pointing at the one experience that we all are, right? Like the thing that connects you and I cellularly or metaphysically or energetically or however. It's all connected.
Yeah.
So the master stays centered in that. We'll remove the word Tao for the time being. And becomes an example for the world. That's just, she isn't an example. She becomes one just by staying centered in that which makes us all one. Because she knows her light is forfeit, people can see it. Because she has...
What's forfeit mean?
Forfeit? It means that it can be taken from her at any point.
Right.
This isn't hers.
Right. Beautiful. Go on.
Because she has no point to prove, people can trust her words. She's not trying to be complete, so everything she says can be heard and trusted because she doesn't want anything. The moment you want something, your words are now chosen to lean towards getting what you want. She has no point to prove. She doesn't have to prove that she's worthy of anything. She doesn't have to prove she is who she says she is. She's just being. And because she is just being, people can trust her words. Because she has no...
Nice.
Go on.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's beautiful.
Because she has no identity, she becomes a mirror for others. And this line is something that has inspired me for years. And I do portraits of people, and I paint their portrait. And when I paint their portrait, it's never to be flattering. I just paint it. And my actions, and I ultimately it's led, and I've been doing this since 1999, so 25 years of doing these like hour and a half, like conversational portraits. And I've turned it into this healing modality, and it's like, it's not even art anymore. It's something more than that. And that's this line, right? Because she has no, I want to have no identity. I don't want to be Martin John. I just want to be. And by being, you can see yourself in me. It's that oneness again, right? And we were talking about earlier. Because because I'm centered in our oneness, you get to see yourself through me. You get to see how much and everything that you are through me. And then when we separate, you continue to see you deeper. And you get to love yourself deeper.
That's true. Yeah.
Because she has nothing to attain, nothing can be kept from her. That was one that really kind of took me a long time, because I was born in, Chicago, so like the metropolitan kind of city, and like things and the greedy 80s and all of these sorts of things. And it's like, when you have nothing to attain, nothing can be kept from you, because there's no desire to have it.
There's no agenda.
Right. And so it just arrives. And I've realized that more and more in my life, as my life becomes freer and freer, and with less and less, I have more and more.
Yep, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Everyone's on at different places.
Yeah. And they're all having their own subjective experience.
True. It's a space in between that we need to heal.
It's ours, right? That space that, when I can love myself to the point that I can be a mirror for you, I only open a door in your subjective experience that you can walk through and love yourself, but I can't do it for you. The world today wants to do it for you. They want to solve all your problems.
They want
for
someone
you.
external to themselves to do it.
Right.
That's right.
And there is no answer outside of yourself.
Indeed. I agree. 100%.
Thus, when it is said, to become complete, know that you're partial. Now, this is particularly interesting because we're coming up to the line that you didn't like. To become complete, know that you're partial. Remember, your subjective experience guides you to the oneness that we all are. It is wise to heed and surrender to it. Only by living in collaboration with everybody on the planet, everything on the planet, everything in the universe, can you find completion.
I can go with that one. Yeah.
It's
That's
just
beautiful.
a word, right? Like Tao is just a word, and it can take the place of God, and then we can get all like, no, I don't want to do that. But it's like really living in collaboration with that which drives us, that consciousness that we are all,
Yeah.
that we all
With the
are.
trees and the plants
With
and
the
the
trees and the
animals
plants and the stars and
all of the
the edge
beautiful
of the universe and everything. Living in collaboration with that through your subjective experience. Only by doing it that way can you find completion. But the more you want completion, the more you're separating yourself from. And you dropped, so if you wanted to come back up, of course, you can. But if you want completion, if you want that, if that's a desire for you, then know that you're partial. If you want to become straight, know that you're crooked. If you want to become full, know that you're empty. But if you don't want any of that, you will recognize that your completion is within your partiality, and because you are part of everything. But that is the same. It isn't duality. That's why Tao is the non-dual. Right? That's why it's non-dual. It's not one and the other, or the other. It's everything. There is no other. It is your one subjective experience that guides you to the oneness. Thank you so much for joining me today, Blossom. It's so beautiful to share all of this. And I'm glad that you feel the way you do about it, because it's blew my mind, and it's been blowing my mind for 20 years, and it continues to do that. So grateful. If anybody else wants to come up and pick a number, I'd be happy to have you up. Otherwise, I'm going to start signing off. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Martin John. I'm here Monday through Friday. I think I'm going to try and do maybe a weekend one, not this weekend, maybe next weekend, and see if people like that. I don't know. I love doing the Tao. I love sharing it with you. I appreciate you guys for joining me. If you're interested in the Tao, I did have a couple questions from Lisa, which was, what's the difference between mine and the ones on the internet? My interpretation, right? My interpretation looks at it from this idea of recovery, and my concept of recovering too, I suppose, only because I talk about influence and living under the influence. And so some of these things are in there. And it is mine. And so that which is important to me foundationally, right? So I look at foundation, and I look at influence, and I look at how our society has influenced us to be a certain way, and moving into the next stage of our relationship with consciousness. So that's where this is sort of coming from. So Lisa wasn't sure what it is. I don't know that there's a clear answer to what Tao is. However, it is. And so, and so there's that. So thank you for joining me. Melissa, thank you for your message. Very profound. Yes. This is, Tao Te Ching. I mean, you start with a good text. You start with the concepts of Tao, which are 3,000 years old. And you pull an arrow, you're going to hit the target, So I appreciate you guys for joining me. Thank you so much. You can pick up a copy of my Tao. So if you like this text, you can pick up a copy of that, on my website, martinjohn.com, which you can find, in my profile. You can find links to it in my profile. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.